Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Workforce Wednesday webinar series powered by the Florida Chamber Foundation's Future of Work Initiative. My name is Rachel Ludwig, and I'm the Senior Director of Future of Work here at the Florida Chamber Foundation. And I'm super thrilled to offer this webinar series to discuss a variety of talent pipeline strategies and solutions. I'm really excited about today's topic. It might be new for some of you, but I think if designed and implemented correctly, it can really fill a gap in terms of employment and unfilled positions. So we're going to be talking today about integrated education and training, and it's abbreviated IET. You may have heard this before. IET provides industry partners the ability to collaborate with adult education providers throughout the state. Whether that be, with a technical college, a state college, an adult education center, to really design specific programs to build workforce skills for the careers that you are looking to hire for. You can go to the next slide. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Webinars participants are encouraged to use the Q&A function in Zoom, and we will leave time to answer those questions at the end. We'll try to also, during the webinar, try to answer a few if we're able to. Today's agenda includes a few updates from the Florida Center for Workforce and Talent Development and presentations from my former colleagues, Dr. Ashley Yap and Kathy O'Neill from the Florida Department of Education. I'm so excited to have both of them. And then we have our industry partners, Yolanda Flores from Collier County Public Schools and Jennifer Thayer from Lee Health. They're going to join a panel discussion together. So I could not be more excited for our speakers and these topics today. And these folks are experts in IET, and I'm just grateful, to call them colleagues in this work. So you can go to the next slide. So we always start our presentations here at the Chamber with some high-level information and reminding everybody of our 2030 blueprint, which is really our North Star that guides all of our work at the Florida Chamber. We are projected to continue seeing tremendous growth in people moving into Florida with 2.8 million net new residents. And we need to create 1.23 million net new jobs by 2030. We have a really big announcement about our rank as 16th largest global economy. We're actually moving up, and that will be announced next week. So that's really exciting. You guys get a preview to that. We are higher now than 16. And we have 39 goals to help Florida go from the 16th or higher largest global economy to the 10th by 2030. So you can see there's a box outlined on here. It might be kind of small actually, but these are the goals of our talent pipeline pillar. We know that improving Florida's talent pipeline for a better workforce is critical to being able to move the state forward. And without a strong talent pipeline and a skilled workforce, the other pillars are not going to be possible. So really they cover goals really from key educational milestones from kindergarten readiness all the way through, eighth grade reading, third grade reading, then eighth grade reading and math, high school graduation, post-secondary credential attainment, and employability skills that kind of span across all industries and positions. You can go to the next slide. So we like to show this slide, and this is updated regularly. As of today, there are 76 people looking for work in Florida for every 100 jobs posted. These numbers can be viewed at the county level on the floridascorecard.org. And then keep in mind that they don't include any possible skills gaps that exist. So, the talent pipelines are pretty tight across the board. And you can kind of see how we compare to other states. If you go to the next slide. I also mentioned last time in our webinar kickoff that there's a disconnect between, what job creators are telling us and what parents and students are telling us in terms of the awareness and preparedness for careers. And today's conversation on IET is really talking about a solution for the outline bullet, which states that over 58% of job creators anticipate a need for reskilling or upskilling, and IET provides a really wonderful solution for that reskilling or upskilling. Next slide. So I want to take a moment to provide some areas that our Future of Work initiative is focused on together with our partners, which you can see their logos there, one being the Florida Department of Education and as well as Adult Ed, our Adult Ed team. We're looking, the Sail to 60 initiative is really looking to get at least 60% of Floridians aged 25 to 64 to have a high value credential. So we're working closely with our career and technical education team, our adult education team to work on that. We're also looking, in terms of promising practices for recruiting and retaining talent, looking at what are those top 30 and 2030 high demand careers, and even more than 30. Lots of times when we present this information, we go with 30 because it's an easier number to present as well as remember. But looking at raising awareness of career pathways for those high demand careers, doing a lot of collaboration with Lee over at the Florida Department of Education on work-based learning and career exploration, along with our team at Zello, and more, as you can see on the screen. We also have launched recently a second chance hiring initiative funded by JP Morgan Chase, which is really exciting. So if you are interested at all in getting involved in that, I encourage you to reach out. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. So as a part of the Florida Future of Work Florida initiative, we launched the Florida Center for Workforce and Talent Development, which really combines the research that we do at the foundation as well as providing a platform for continuous and expansion of that research, talent development efforts, and our vast networks that we can communicate information as well as making sure everything is aligned. The two tools that I would encourage you all to be using are the floridascorecard.org as well as the floridagapmap.org. And I think that these can be used at every single local conversation related to economic development. The gap map specifically can really dissect your zip codes in your county and looking at some of the barriers to post-secondary education and employment. So we're working to amplify that message when we're talking across the state to try to have local communities use those tools to help grow our counties and our regions. You can go to the next slide. So I did mention this earlier, and this actually fits really well with our conversation today. So when looking at our opportunity populations and our talent pools, obviously, when people think of long-term talent pipeline solutions, they're thinking about our young ones in K-12 as well as, a little bit shorter term in our post-secondary. But we also have several opportunity populations that we can consider for talent. 24,000 people are released every year into Florida communities that were previously incarcerated. And then our population that we'll be discussing today, there's nearly 2 million 18 and above that do not have a GED in Florida. And so we're looking at different ways to accelerate these opportunities for these folks to join the workforce. And IET is a wonderful way to do that. So you can go to the next slide. I'm almost ready to pass it along here. One thing I wanted to share. So last time I shared about our top 30 and 2030 high demand careers. And today I'm actually going to show you the region where our speakers down in Southwest Florida are here. So we have, I want to keep in mind though how this list was developed. So this is from Florida Commerce. And then we also listed, it's the fast growing careers and they have to be at or above the median salary, which you can see is $40,800. It takes into account people that are going to be leaving the workforce, as well as new growth openings. So I'm going to show you those for Southwest Florida here in a second. You can go to the next slide. So here are the first 10, and notice how it's actually the top 25 high demand careers. The goal was 30. Some of the regions in the state actually don't have 30 that meet the criteria. So you can see the first 10 here. There's a mix of industries for these counties that are listed, as well as a mix of education requirements. You can go to the next slide. Here's 11 through 20. You can see more bachelor's degrees are required here than the first one. I can also give you a little bit of information about kind of the overall statewide numbers and how they relate to some of them that show up here. So accountants and auditors, for example, is a really wonderful career path. They show up on 18 out of the 24 workforce regions, top 30 lists. Elementary teachers, we know there's a teacher shortage and we have challenges filling those positions. They show up on half of the high demand list. And then market research analyst shows up on 16 out of the 24, software developers show up on 18 of the 24, and management analysts show up on 19 of the 24. So ones that are showing up here in South Florida, specifically ones for bachelor's degrees, are showing up on lots of different regional high demand careers lists. And then you can go to the next slide. You can see the last few here. Obviously, we know that nursing shows up, RN show up on 22 out of the 24 regions. So I'm sure Jen will, lead into that later. But basically those are kind of the projections for people either leaving the workforce or adding new positions for this region of the state. And we do have these for all 24 workforce regions. It's really fascinating to kind of see how the regions mirror each other. You can go to the next slide. I want to thank our Future of Work Advisory Board, who represent, a wide range of industries and talent development professionals. Without them, this work would not be possible. They provide incredible leadership as well as insight into a lot of the work that we're doing. We have one specifically that's new, Kristen Vanslow from FGCU, and we're really excited to have her on board. And she is in Southwest Florida as well. So very well connected with our two speakers, Jen and Yolanda. And now I want to introduce Dr. Ashley Yop, Bureau Chief of Adult Education at the Florida Department of Education. Ashley and I work together to raise the profile for opportunities offered by adult ed in Florida while I work at the FDOE, as well as a lot of professional development efforts to expand IET. So thank you so much, Ashley, for being here today.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak. What's really fun this morning is that many of the, strides we've made in adult education as a state have been made much to the efforts of Rachel. So it's really great to see how we continue that path, and we're really growing as it relates to opportunities for adult learners in our state. If you go to the next slide. I'm really happy to be here this morning to really talk about our adult education programs and the opportunities that are available to students, adult learners across our state. As you may know, adult education works to serve those members of our society who lack those basic skills needed to either earn a high school diploma or its equivalency, and maybe working towards their English language skills. Also, we have those opportunities, especially through IET, for upskilling and reskilling in math and literacy through additional academic programming. We do have 5 adult education programs that support students to meet those goals across the state, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. And those exist in 49 school districts and 11 state colleges. We're really, really proud that we continue to add additional counties and school districts across our state to really meet those needs of adult learners. We're also very proud to have more than 135,000 adult learners served through adult education that's in our state. That is a big growth. Again, I will attribute some of that to Rachel as well and her work here, and some of her passion projects to really extend opportunities for adult learners in Florida. I really like this talking point, so to speak. We now in Florida are serving more adult education students than both Texas and New York combined. And those states are humongous, especially as it relates to the need for adult learners. And our programs are doing more. They're also doing more with less federal dollars. So very, very, very proud of that fact. So of those 5 academic program areas that we have, first one is ABE, or Adult Basic Education, where we're helping adults get those skills needed for competencies in math and in reasoning through language arts. We also have Adult High School, which is a bit of a different type of program for those who would like to go back to their high school and really graduate with the different specific core areas needed to get their high school diploma from the place in which they graduated, or where they lack that high school diploma or that high school credential. In addition to that, we have programs for those who are interested in working towards taking the GED assessment or getting that high school equivalency diploma in the different areas needed to pass those 4 subtests that are associated with the GED assessment. One of our largest programs in the state of Florida is ESOL, or English for Speakers of Other Languages. Around 30 8% of our population is in this program. We have a great need for this for those who may already have credentials from their home countries. I mean, we have students from all walks of life all over the world who are coming in. Some are doctors, lawyers, pilots, former members of the military who are coming who just really need those basic language skills to really jump into the workforce. And then our newest program is ASB, or Academic Skills Building, where it's really helping those who are trying to get some of those basic math and language skills for workforce preparation. So very, very proud of the different program areas and how they're serving students in the local programs across our state. Our adult education programs also cultivate those essential employability skills by using the department's employability skills framework, which is relatively new and incorporated in all of our curriculum across the state. Recently, in partnership with Florida Ready to Work, many of our adult education programs incorporate their state-sponsored career readiness training and credentialing, which is designed to prepare students and job seekers with workforce skills required for that next step toward technical training, certification, and employment. Adult learners in these programs take advantage of these credentials, and while doing so, they may earn up to these three, which are in soft skills, academic employment skills, and digital skills. We're very, very proud of that partnership and the work that's being done locally with the help of Florida Ready to Work. I'd like to share with you one success story that I'm particularly fond of, and that's of Zach Long, pictured here, with some instructors that he had and now is working with. Zach dropped out of school at the age of 14. And then at 19, he decided to attend Tom P. Haney Technical College to earn that high school equivalency diploma, which he quickly did. He achieved that goal. And then he enrolled in the welding technology program, where he made a quick, very quick impression on his teachers with his very positive can-do attitude. And welding wasn't easy for him at first, but his teachers were determined to really match his commitment to learning. So one day it clicked and life completely changed. Zach was no longer just learning the basics of welding. He was really mastering those skills. And after completing that welding course, he was encouraged to keep going and enroll in some advanced welding programs, which really require some high-level entry skills for acceptance. So once again, obviously, Zach excelled. He's just a natural. He's a mentor, an encourager to his fellow classmates, which is really great to see, especially in the welding program. He really always took the time to help others while really staying focused on his goal of pursuing excellence in the shop in welding. And then after graduation, he went on to some of the highest level skill sets in the welding profession in nuclear power plants. He excelled in that industry. He worked for several years as a travel welder. And then he decided he wanted to come back home. He married his wife, wanted to start a family. And he just wanted to be more involved and not traveling as much. So the opportunity came along and an instructor position opened back up at Haney Technical College. And Zach was the obvious fit. He was the perfect choice, and it was unanimous. And now he gets to work side by side with his former instructors, and he's impacting lives of other students by really pouring in his wealth of knowledge and experience into future welders. So Zach is the very definition of success in adult education, and not only the impact of our programs can have in transforming the future of adults in Florida, but really the success of IET. Zach's story makes me even more proud because especially in working with adult learners with hands-on workforce training, because I'm a former welding instructor myself. So it's really cool to see our programs making such an impact in the lives of others, especially, again, through IET. So with that, I'm happy to introduce our State Director of IET, Kathy O'Neill, who's going to provide a bit more of an overview of those IET programs. Kathy?
Good morning. I'm really happy to be here and share with you all more about integrated education and training and just really the opportunities that are there for students and, of course, for all of our partners across the state. Next slide. So what is integrated education and training? Some of you may have already heard about it, but here I'll give you a little bit more information. It's essentially an educational model that really helps our workers. We have a lot of adult learners who are in between jobs, looking to start jobs. Both Rachel and Ashley really laid out the different populations that we are serving in our adult education programs. And it can help them with acquiring or refreshing key basic skills while they're also pursuing occupational or industry-specific training. So we really have this simultaneous partnership taking place for the adult learner, where they are able to improve the academic skills and any of the programs that Dr. Yap previously mentioned, as well as improving their language skills. So it's a really exciting opportunity that we have many adult education providers taking advantage of across the state. And it really has shifted the way that we've had to look at preparing the adult learner for the workforce, because the traditional model before it was very sequential. And it meant that a lot of our adult learners had to make a choice if they stayed in school or if they were able to enter the workforce. But through IET, we're able to braid both of these sides together and also layer in their different aspects of it. So we're incredibly excited about the work that is being done throughout the state. So I really hope that as you stay with us through this webinar, you get to see and really start processing what these opportunities could look like locally for you. Next slide. So there are 3 required components of an IET program. So anytime we're discussing an IET program, know that these 3 pieces are there. We're being led by the workforce training activities. So if it's welding, if it's culinary, the key principles in those areas and the key skills are what's being taught to our adult learners. The adult education and literacy activities, those are the pieces, of course, that's improving the students with their basic skills, with their language development in English, and as well as their workforce preparation activities. So this is where our partnership with Florida Ready to Work could come into play, because it's teaching those soft skills as they're referred to in many places here. So we have these 3 different areas that are getting braided together to really prepare the student. So now they're not in that sequential model that I had referenced previously. It's I'm improving my basic skills, but I'm also working towards this industry or to this specific credential. So now I am ready to enter the workforce and be a part of it, but I'm also getting the soft skills that I need, those employability skills, which could be technology, which could be just how to interact, teamwork, team building. Our department's framework has really laid out how employers are able to intertwine these areas here. So, and knowing that these 3 components exist, it's what helps bring us to success stories. So there is one that I do want to share that I learned about recently that's happening in Brevard County, and it's of a 63-year-old grandmother. So integrated education and training was another opportunity for her to re-enter the workforce. So it provided her the opportunity to go and become a paraprofessional. And we know there's such a need right now in the education world, not only for teachers, because Rachel also mentioned that there is a shortage and we're trying to turn that around, but also for the instructional assistants who are there. So by being in an IET program, she thought she had been out of school for so long, and Nancy was able to upskill her reading and her math, and seeing that even though she'd been out of work for so long, that she was still able to build upon those skills. She was still able to prepare for the paraprofessional exam, and she was still also learning the collaboration skills, the team building, the time management, all these different elements. So it's really a testament to how, when we just talk about workforce training activities, adult education and literacy activities, and workforce preparation activities, there's so much depth that goes into them, that all of our different providers are really working together in partnerships to meet local needs. And I know when our panelists talk about it in a bit, they'll really get into the meat of how they made it work in their region, but it's really impacting lives. So now Nancy at 63, who thought this was an impossible task for her, but has managed to overcome her fears, her own barriers, and has entered the workforce. And she's now a professional in her own district, and she's working in her children's school system. So it's pretty amazing the work that's being done out there. Next slide. So just a little bit of background when it comes to our IET programs. It's just letting you know that there's a strong push through this throughout the entire nation. It's not just a Florida initiative, but Florida is really paving the way with how this looks. So we are very proud of the groundwork that has been laid in partnership when Rachel was a colleague here with us, and how we're continuing it, and how places like Collier County are really moving forward with making meaningful opportunities available to their students so it can help raise their abilities. So just know that when you are building and supporting robust IET programs, you're really helping to build that capacity of adult education and higher education partners to implement integrated education and training programs, but you're also increasing post-secondary career and credential attainment, particularly amongst some of those that who need these opportunities more than others. And there are oftentimes different barriers as to why they didn't take advantage of this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or maybe even Nancy's case, almost 40 years ago. So it's extremely impactful, and it's allowing them to join and or progress through the workforce. There are many places where their integrated education and training programs already have the pathway that's developed for them. Other places, they are continuing to build that pathway because they're working closely with seeing what the labor market needs are in their area. Next slide. This slide here is just a quick glance, and it also touches on what Rachel had mentioned before. We almost have 2 million individuals, so it's about 11% that do not have a high school diploma. So if we can really engage them to see that there are opportunities throughout the state where they can work on their high school equivalency, and at the same time be working towards a career, working towards an industry recognized credential, this right here can really help change the future of course, what we're all trying to aim for is that future of work. What is the impact that we're having on Florida's economic development? Next slide. And here it's also just quickly showing you that we have a wide variety of languages spoken here in Florida, which we all know, but sometimes we don't always just see how significant it is. And Dr. Yap also touched on how we have many internationally trained professionals. So they have the experience, they just may not have the language. So there's a huge pool of really everyone that we can engage through IET to enter our workforce to help support all the different industries that you all are a part of. Next slide. And so here's just a little quick rundown as well of the IET programs and the industry and the career clusters that we're really serving. So right now we have 36 adult education providers that have IET programs, and more than 2,700 students were supported in 167 different IET programs statewide. So there are more than 400 IET programs available throughout the state. So I definitely encourage you to think about how partnering with any of the 49 districts or the 11 state colleges, but really the ones that are in your area, the impact that you are able to have on people's homes and on their future generations, but also within your own employer area. Next slide. And I've been fortunate enough to go out and start touring our different agencies that are offering and doing all the incredible legwork with developing, implementing, designing, monitoring, revamping their integrated education and training programs. And it is absolutely amazing to be able to walk into these different classrooms that can happen at a state college, at a school district, at an adult education center, whether it's a large city or it's a rural area, and the commitment that is really there from the different partners and the conversations that are having between different agencies and the different employers that are there. A lot of it, yes, is healthcare driven. We know, like with Florida being a retirement state, we know with different things, healthcare is always there, but they're different areas, and just being creative sometimes, the resiliency that we're really seeing in smaller areas. So rural places, they are hungry for partnerships because they are there, they are preparing the students. But again, this is happening throughout the entire state. So we're extremely proud at the division of the work that is being done. Here in this picture, it's just a quick glance again at what's being done this was Clay County. So here the students, these are the actual IET students who are doing this work. They are getting hands-on experience, they're getting technical training. So that means they're getting the experience and the skills from an expert, from a certified expert in their field, and they're also getting the support from an adult education provider. Everyone has a little bit of a different model, but here the students were learning how to take part in drawing blood, doing all these different skills, and it's just the opportunity and the accessibility that's being afforded to them. So I'm really excited about the different things that you're hearing. You heard about already in the Panhandle, what we have happening with Tom P. Haney Technical College. I've referenced Brevard County, now Clay County, and you'll be hearing about Collier County. So that just kind of sees how it's taking you throughout the state for all these different IET programs that are really servicing student needs, but also industry needs. Next slide. So here are some ways that I would encourage you to support and prepare your local workforce with the local IET programs that are available to you. So you can enter into partnership by having them design IET programs that train for a specific occupation and cluster from local workforce. And a lot of these discussions I've also had with our education providers. So hopefully some of them have actually reached out to you from when I talked to them about this. And maybe it didn't make a connection with you at this time, but hopefully today it will. So of course, the encouragement of connecting with the local chambers of commerce, collaborate with the different partners who are out there. We have an incredible number of resources throughout the state, inviting additional industry partners to come together and really forming an IET team and our advisory board, or looking for yourself to be a part of one at any of these adult education providers. So this is really what the field has been tasked with in trying to strengthen up, because in education, we're always looking to improve. And I know that in the different industries that you are in as well, you're always being reflective of where do we need to go? How are we moving this needle to help progress everything for our students and for economic development? Next slide. So for those of you who have joined us this Wednesday morning, I would like to call on you to get engaged with IET programs. And these are just some questions that you can consider for yourself. What positions do you need filled in your area, specifically with the companies that you work with, that you represent? And what skills are needed for those positions? What industry certifications are needed? Who is your local adult education provider? And what short-term training programs can benefit your company? Pretty much taking a chance to internally reflect on these questions and then engaging with your local adult education provider. I think you'll really be able to take advantage of these opportunities where you are supporting your industry, you are supporting your company, your organization, but you're also having an immediate impact on the lives of people in your area. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy, and also Ashley, for presenting this amazing information and for all the work you do for the Florida Department of Education. I'm really excited to get into our panel part of our webinar today, where we're actually going to hear how this is done on the ground. We have Yolanda Flores, who's the Administrative Director of Post-Secondary Adult and Community Education at Collier County Public Schools, and Jen Thayer, who is the Program Director for Workforce Planning and Development for Lee Health. And I have to say, both of these individuals have helped me a lot as I've transitioned into this role. And I'm so grateful for both of them. They're just rock stars at what they do. Yolanda, let's start with you. Can you share your professional background and your role at Collier County Schools a little bit more?
Absolutely. Can you hear me, Rachel?
Yep.
Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me to speak, of course, about a topic that I'm very passionate about. And it's always good to see when things are aligned. And as I read Florida Blueprint 20, which of course seeks to create an integrated talent system to provide a sustainable workforce by adopting targeting strategies, right? And so when you think in terms of the populations mentioned by Dr. Yap and by Kathy, those are our adult education students. They're coming from at-risk backgrounds, low income, older populations, right? And so through our IET programming, we're really targeting those targeted strategies. So I've had the privilege of working with these populations for over 25 years in Collier County as the administrative director, where I've been responsible not only for adult education, but also post-secondary career and technical education programming. In essence, anything having to do with adults as well as career dual enrollment students. And so it's always exciting to prepare individuals to enter the world of work in industries such as aviation and HVAC and machining and nursing, just to name a few of the many careers that we offer. So I'm very pleased to be here with you and to share our IET program.
All right, well, let's jump in, Yolanda. Let's talk about IET program development and implementation. So, why did you select certain industries or areas of emphasis when you were going through this process? And can you also, for our listeners who haven't been in the weeds in the development of these programs, like how is curriculum developed for an IET?
Okay. And before I jump straight into that, I want to share one other little interesting fact, right? And that is so that people can really understand why it is important to focus on our adult education students, right? And that is, in case you've never heard Florida being referred to as God's waiting room, it's referred to as God's waiting room because every day we have more individuals that die that are being born, right? And on top of that, we have all these baby boomers that are retiring. However, we have this large adult education population that we could target and help them solve the talent pipeline issue that Florida. So when we look to build an IET program, first of all, we started looking at data. Our career source for our region plays a pivotal role. We look at our regional demands occupation list. We meet with career source staff. Our executive director, Peg Elmore, and Mary Ann Zern are very, very key partners in starting the conversation because they are in the weeds in terms of what business needs in our area. So if we're looking at something, we look at our demand list, we have conversations with them, and then we seek out industry partners in the area. Okay, so when we first started on building IET programs, the first three that we started with were parapro, nursing assistant, and HVAC. And as we go back and review your list that you've shared with the group today, guess what was there? Many healthcare careers, HVAC was on the list, and elementary school teachers. And while through IET, we don't prepare individuals to become an elementary teacher, we prepare them to become parapros so that they can start working in the classrooms, become exposed to that environment, and then hoping that they'll want to continue on to that pathway of becoming a teacher. An interesting thing that just happened this past year is that Florida Gulf Coast University, and you mentioned one of your board members, Christian, she came to visit our parapro program because they're looking at now how can we connect those individuals to Florida Gulf Coast University so that they can continue on a pathway to become teachers. So that's evolving as we speak. Also, our industry partners are critical. Our nursing assistant program, very much needed, very vital. When students finish that program, they will sit for their exam, and many of them will decide to go and work in industry. And others at some point in their life will decide to continue on to become practical nurses or registered nurses. So our industry partners such as Naples Hospital, Lee Memorial Hospital, as well as our numerous assisted living facilities are very critical to informing us in terms of what their needs. In addition to those three programs, we then eventually added drafting and culinary. And most recently, we're looking now to add a manufacturing IET program. And that's in thanks to our collaboratory, Future Makers and Florida Gulf Coast University, who provided us a grant of $124,000 to start building that program. Why that program? Because there's a need. We have a growing manufacturing industry in Florida. And so we had conversations with partners from the Southwest Florida Regional Manufacturers Association. Rob Harris was very valuable. Luce and Company, who's an aviation manufacturer, as well as Roots Education. And that's where we started the conversation in terms of what are the needs and what do we need to take into account when we develop a manufacturing IET. So in addition to there being a need, the other reason is as we were looking at our Perkins data for our career and technical education programs, we found out that many of our adult ed students were not choosing manufacturing as one of the CTE programs. They were going into healthcare, they were going into nursing, they were going into culinary, which proves that IET works to expose them and get them excited. But we want to get them excited also about manufacturing. And part of it is because they don't know what manufacturing is. Living in Florida, most people just think of us as healthcare and, hospitality, etc. So it's our job as educators to educate our students about all the opportunities that are available out there for viable careers and to provide those opportunities to them. So from there, once we have our data and we've met with industry partners, of course, we go about writing our curriculum. And Kathy mentioned those 3 components that are critical to that curriculum. And those, of course, are the adult education and literacy activities, the workforce preparation activities, and the workforce training. And so we're fortunate that in the state of Florida, our Florida Department of Education does an excellent job of providing curriculum frameworks for many of the career and technical ed programs. So we start by looking at those, and then we look at our adult education curriculum frameworks, and then start seeing within the scope of our IET, what is it that we're able to address. And then, of course, with our industry partners, we have them review it to see, are we on target? Because at the end of the day, it is our industry partners that will be hiring our students.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Do you have any advice before we move to Jen? Do you have any advice for listeners on our call today who may, have realized like, oh, this is an opportunity that I could definitely explore, because it is really flexible and it's like something that is for everybody. If the collaboration takes place, like what kind of first steps would you recommend for somebody who's like, oh, I want to engage in this. I have this position that requires, maybe entry-level skills that I really want to try to work harder at filling. Like what can people do as an action step?
The first piece of advice that I would give, especially if they're not familiar with a model or not sure, is reach out to your colleagues throughout the state of Florida, right? You have a lot of wonderful work happening in this arena, and we've learned a lot. We failed along the way. We learned from our mistakes, and we went and we revised. So that's number one. Number two, one of the things that sometimes I hear from my colleagues is, I don't know what industries in my area are. I don't know who those employers are. I don't know how to go and make contact with them. Career Source, that's your in between there. They can help you make those connections. And then look for opportunities within your county or within your city. What else is going on there? It's also your Chamber of Commerce's. We have a great relationship with our Naples Chamber of Commerce. So those are all places where you can start building those connections with industry. And not only those connections, sometimes in education, we don't have the funding to get these programs started, because they cost more money than just a regular adult education program. Now you're looking at CTE. Sometimes scholarships are needed for students. We've been fortunate that organizations like Future Makers, a collaboratory, have provided us scholarships for students. Also, we have civic organizations, such as our Rotary clubs, that have been very generous in helping us with making sure that these programs are successful and that our students have the resources and tools to be able to enroll in the programs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yolanda. We're moving to Jen now. Jen, I would love for you to share for our listeners. Thank you so much again, Yolanda. I appreciate all that background information and for all the work that you do. Jen, share your role at Lee Health, kind of where this fits into what you do in your role.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. Glad to be here. Thank you, Yolanda. That was great information. You're such an incredible partner and really leading the efforts down there in Collier for these IET programs. So I just feel the need to give you a special shout out because you are making it happen down here in Southwest Florida. And for that, as an industry partner, I am extremely grateful because we need these programs. So just to kind of connect some dots, my name is Jen Thayer. I serve as the Workforce Development Program Manager, and I have the ability and the pleasure of working with local educators, community partners such as Career Source and the Chamber to really understand the workforce that's here in Southwest Florida, or maybe the workforce that's not here in Southwest Florida is the better way to say it, and work with those partners to try to develop programs and pathways. I have an internal piece at Lee Health as well to make sure our employees are aligned with opportunities. But for this particular conversation, I have the pleasure of serving as the Healthcare Alignment Chair down here in Southwest Florida for the Future Makers Coalition. And that's really as a community impact group where a lot of these conversations happen. And they're conversations between those educators and the employers. Specifically for our group, it's obviously the discussions around healthcare, but that's really where no one solution is out there and no one person has the solution. So coming together as a collective group, with other hospital systems, with other small employers, and most importantly, with our industry educators and those community partners that provide the resources. So it's really just collecting and being part of a group effort to make sure that we're upskilling and reskilling the community down here in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you share some of the challenges you face specifically at Lee Health in recruiting and retaining talent for, a variety of positions in healthcare, which many of which people are not even aware of as opportunities?
Well, I know for the essence of time, you could quickly get me to talk about this topic forever because it is my passion. I do go out and do just that, Rachel, talk to community members about what healthcare is. Obviously, nursing and physicians and NPs are our biggest need, but there's just so much more. The challenges, to put it in perspective, as of today, Lee Health still has 1,200 open jobs. During the height of the crisis of workforce about a year ago, that number was close to 3,000. And that was a daily open job equivalency, many of those being nurses, many of those being clinicians, but also support staff. It truly takes an army to run a health system, from both corporate services to support services to those much needed clinical services. So really making sure that, as you said, everybody out there knows that, yes, you can become a nurse or a doctor, but there are so many pathways into healthcare that can create not only opportunities, but sustainable employment with high potential earnings without a 4-year degree.
For sure. What are some of the key partnerships? You mentioned the Future Makers and, obviously Yolanda's at Lorenzo Walker Technical College. What other partnerships do you have to build your talent pipeline? And what other maybe outreach efforts do you have to raise awareness of all those opportunities you mentioned are available?
Well, for the employers out there, the best advice I can give, and I say this often, is you have to be where the training's happening. You have to understand what that curriculum looks like. We are very fortunate that we are invited to be on advisory boards at the school so we can look at the curriculum. We're not there to tell the educators what to do by any stretch. They're doing a fabulous job. It's a Herculean task. What we are there to do to say what our needs are and whether these programs are meeting those needs and where the gaps are. So it's really more of a conversation than a criticism. So I would suggest to, for those of you, whatever industry you're in, know the local schools that are producing these graduates, get out there to those programs. They're more than willing to open their doors to show you, meet with those students, and just understand, because the educational partners their goal is to produce working adults. And they want to know from us what's working and what's not working. And so that's my best piece of advice with those partnerships. And it's the educators. Rachel, you mentioned the dashboard, for Florida Chamber employers. look at that dashboard, know your community, know what the demographics are of community. That will lead you to these IET programs clearly to see where there are skills gaps and where we need assistance. Earlier on, it was mentioned about the migration trends in Florida and the need to really figure out how we can upskill and get those that might have some language barriers into the workforce. These are very talented professionals. They want to give back to the community, but without a command of the English language, it's difficult. So, long-winded, but it takes a village. Know your local career source, know your chamber, definitely go back to the Florida Chamber. That blueprint is spot on. It couldn't align. I mean, we've been doing this work for a long time down here in Southwest Florida. Yolanda can attest to that. She's got, I think you said 20 plus years down here. But the point being is I've only been here a little over 4. The alignment is never been greater. And it's because of the partnerships. It's not because someone just came in and said, poof, talk to each other. It's constantly getting together, facing challenges together, and recognizing that nobody has the solution. Everybody has to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. I think you're spot on. I appreciate all of our speakers today and taking the time and for all the work, to provide quality IET programs and workforce training programs, in Southwest Florida, with Yolanda and Jen, but also throughout our state. So we can move into our Q&A portion now. I've kind of been looking at them as we went along here. I do think, Ken, I may have to get back to you. The question was related to digital learning and employment records. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. I know that there are some conversations about that, but I don't have the answer at the tip of my tongue right now. And let's see what else here. I saw some other comments and a lot of future maker shout outs, which is really great. I think, one thing that I've learned from this conversation and many that I've had and been a part of is the relationship building takes time. It's not a smooth, easy process all the time. Tessa would say it's messy sometimes, which I think is a really wonderful way to say it, because you have to work out the kinks, but you can see that this group in Southwest Florida specifically is really committed to changing their region in a positive way. And it's so evident. So thank you all again. We can move to the next slide. As we wrap up, I want to remind you that this webinar has been recorded and will be shared out to all attendees today. And then also you can see that there's a QR code for our next webinar. And I'm actually going to put the link here in the chat as well. Hopefully it works. But this is going to really talk about and kind of extend the conversation today about leveraging post-secondary training partnerships to build talent pipelines. I'm really excited for this conversation in January. We will have actually 3 Future of Work Advisory Board members joining us. So Brooke Malsberger will be on from Lockheed Martin. Kristen from Vanslo from Florida Gulf Coast University, you've heard them mentioned a few times, will be here, as well as Bill Solomon from Indian River State College. So really a variety of regions and discussing the partnerships that are very important to building talent pipelines. So again, you can register now. It is open and complimentary, of course. And then I'll be sharing out that information as well in future memos and things like that. And then you can go to the last slide, Katie. Thank you. So here's my contact information. As always, I am very excited to have these conversations with you. And I would love to talk about your specific community, your specific region, and even share those top 30 and 2030 high demand careers with you. It is my hope that we're working on plans to build a website for the Florida Center for Workforce and Talent Development, which we will be hopefully building a nice resource bank, and those high demand careers will be a part of that, along with some other toolkits such as a work-based learning toolkit, which is really exciting. Our advisory board will be weighing in heavily on that. And we are looking, for more advisory board members and as well as any sponsors for our webinar series. So if you are interested in connecting at all or getting involved, you have my contact information here. I would love to talk with you. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of the week.